All right. Well, hello, YouTube. This is our first ever time to be on YouTube Live. We usually do Facebook Live, but we think those videos kind of get buried and lost, and we want to be famous. We want everyone to know who we are. We want people to share our videos. This is Theology on Air, a ministry of Theology on Tap. Houston, Theology on Tap. What is it? HoustonTOT.com is our website, so let's put that out right away.
Yeah.
I'm Evan McClanahan, pastor at First Lutheran, with Sarah Stone at Memorial Drive Presbyterian Church, director of Young Adults Outreach. Get that right?
Yes. All right, good enough.
And Joseph Yu, a friend of Theology on Tap and soon-to-be mission planter for the Episcopal Church.
Sure, yeah.
Mosaic Church is the name. It's going to happen. COVID kind of put a wreck on the mission planting for a lot of people, so you're in good company in that respect. But anyway,
Cool.
This is Theology on Air. This is our monthly Around the Blackboard episode where we talk about current events, headlines, all the weird and wacky stuff going on in the world right now. We could probably have like one of these a day and still not cover all the news going on right now.
For real.
Wall Street manipulation, weird elections, QAnon, LGBT agendas. We're going to be talking about all that today on Theology on Air. So, again, HoustonTOT.com. We want you to subscribe on YouTube because we're going to YouTube. So we want you to,
We're catching up to $19.99, y'all.
Exactly. So go to YouTube, subscribe, our website. You can get emails from us. We're going to have a live event again if you're in Houston in April, and online event in March. So check out the Facebook page, like us there. Anything else?
Yes. Wherever you listen to podcasts, rate us, review us, subscribe. You will win fabulous prizes. I mean, right now it's just like hugs from me and Evan, but
It'll
better
happen.
things to
Are we
come.
allowed to give hugs?
Okay, that's why I said me and Evan, because I know this guy's
We're
cranky
cool.
about hugs,
We're
apparently. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's about it.
Well, let's jump in.
Yeah.
The people are waiting. So I wanted to start with a look at this interesting, what's described as kind of a populist movement, with this whole Gamestop situation, right?
Yeah.
So for people who might have seen GameStop in the news and why did the stock of GameStop go up and all this kind of stuff, what's going on? Well, it's kind of a war against hedge funds, and in a sense, a war against the elites, and a war against the elites who are betting on failure. And so the idea is that, you know what, there's one thing that we can do if we work together to get back at the elites, and
make some money.
And make some money, absolutely. Well, because So, I mean, I guess at some point the stock has to sell, so I guess they could make money. But the only reason I hedge on that, pardon the phrase, is because if you got into that too late, then you're buying really high, and it's not going to stay there forever. But the idea is that, I mean, I think the cultural tie-in, and this I think does go back to something like Trump like 5 years ago, is that there is a sense in America, I believe, that average ordinary people feel out of touch, like they feel like there are people running things and they don't have any say. That's the stock market, which doesn't always seem to, correspond to what's going on Wall Street, or Main Street, I should say. It's the powers that be in D.C. It's the techno oligarchs, et cetera, et cetera. So this was kind of heralded as a win for everyday people who finally had a mechanism to sort of get back at those Wall Street entities who were going to make money off the failure of a business. So basically, selling short means you basically borrow stock from somebody at a price, and then when the price of that stock goes down, you actually buy it, and then you give what you borrowed back, and the difference is what you profit.
Yeah,
right?
it's called shorting.
It's shorting, yeah.
Is that why that movie's called Big Short?
It actually is.
That's the one with Steve Carell and Brad Pitt.
Christian Bale?
Christian Bale got super skinny for that role. Yeah.
And The Machinist as well.
Okay.
Yeah, you've seen The Machinist.
We've derailed
I've not
already.
seen The Machinist, but I've seen how skinny he got.
It's a great movie about guilt and shame and and self-hatred.
Which brings us right back to all of our topics.
You should watch it. Okay,
Very
so
good Christian themes.
I am, rather than using a Financial Times or Wall Street Journal article, I thought it would be best for the average people like me to just use the Babylon Bee article about this, which actually kind of explains it. But maybe the bigger questions we could think about as Christians is something like, well, golly, what is the name of the app? Robinhood.
Yeah.
Are the Robin Hooders doing a moral thing?
Well, maybe explain, or are you just going to read it, what they're doing? Because that's the second part of the story, which is really important.
Okay, so what they're doing is people, basically a thread on Reddit, they basically figured out what the hedge funds were going to do. They were waiting on GameStop to fail because it's a retail space, and like a lot of retail spaces, they've been struggling for a couple of years. So they realized that the stock is getting shorted. So they realized that the hedge funds are just waiting for the price to go down and go down and go down to do the short and make their money. So what they did is they said, well, wait a minute. But if we all agree if there's enough of us who agree to buy the stock now, then that will force the price up. And then they can't short it. Like there's no mechanism. In fact, they'll lose millions or billions of dollars because now they have a stock that they bought waiting on it to go down, and now it went up. So now to get rid of it, they have to lose money to get rid of it.
And just to be clear, there was nothing illegal about what they did because they weren't giving some kind of false information. They recognized that GameStop was going down in value, but in doing that, they actually brought the value of it back up. But sort of in pretend world, sort of.
It's debated as to whether or not it's illegal. In fact, the Babylon Bee article kind of had, but yeah. So the Robinhood app was an app that, and they're doing this with many companies, like a lot of retail, like Bed Bath & Beyond was another one. Yeah. So companies that are basically on the
BlackBerry.
I know someone who has a BlackBerry. The other day, I was like, is that a BlackBerry?
Like,
and you're like, did you go back in time?
Do you plug that into your 56K modem? How does that work? Anyway, so it's not just GameStop. It's all these companies that are on the verge of failing that people are waiting to short. And it's like, well, the thing is, you have to have significant buying. You have to have enough people buying in to say, okay, I'm going to buy this stock at this price. And so it's going to force the stock. It's not that GameStop became a more valuable company.
Right.
It's just that
temporarily it did, but
yeah, in a manner of speaking, but it's not
in a manufactured way. Yeah.
But when I go to, the thing is, if GameStop goes out of business, where am I going to buy my used Wii?
Oh my gosh.
Stop. No, I did. I bought my Wii from there in 2017.
It sounds like you're saying weed every time.
No, Wii.
Evan
I knew what you
McClanahan
meant,
is
Evan.
buying
Evan,
weed.
I got you. I knew what you
The
meant.
Wii, Wii Sports, Mario Kart. This was like our kid's big Christmas present, like Mario Kart from 2008,
That's
okay.
cute. Okay, but you were saying Robinhood is an app.
It's an app, and that's where you go, and they're basically telling you, I mean, I don't have it, but basically it's hey, this is a stock that's about to be shorted, buy it now, and then they'll have to buy it back if we all do it. If there's enough of us doing it, right, it'll force the stock up, and then they'll have to buy it from you to get out of it because there's no way out. Once the stock goes out, as long as you hold it, it can't go down because there's a finite number of stocks, and the value of the company is so much.
But you know what Robinhood is doing now?
Well, now they're shutting down. They're basically halting this.
Yeah, which is a huge problem of freedom and free speech and free trade.
That's why the question of whether it's illegal or not is one that we're going to have to figure, because this is technicalities beyond my expertise for sure. But basically, the idea is that are people conspiring to manipulate the price of a public stock? Because a public stock is heavily regulated by the SEC to ensure that when people get into the stock market, they can be assured that it's not going to be manipulated. So there's no question that they're manipulating the market, but they're using like publicly available means to manipulate the market. And so the question also is, in this Babylon Bee gets to it, is, well, wait, the hedge fund people manipulate the market too.
That's right.
So why is it legal for them to do it, but it's not legal for a bunch of people on Reddit to do it, right? So
I think the funniest thing is when you have AOC and Ben Shapiro on the same page,
agreeing.
You done messed up.
Right.
You're like, what's happening?
Right. So let me just read some of this article. Of course, Babylon Bee, in case you don't know, is satirical. Everyone clear on that? Okay.
Thanks,
all right.
boss.
Like they actually get in trouble.
I know.
Like they've had like articles banned for like being fake news. It's like it's satire.
I think the president Trump once shared a Babylon Bee,
thinking it
was real.
Quite.
Oh, bless. That did happen.
Quite possible. It's quite possible.
Yeah.
It did. For sure.
GameStop is hot. Buy. What's all this talk about the stock market and GameStop all of a sudden? What does it mean to short a stock? Can I become as rich as that guy on the Wolf of Wall Street, except spend all my money on Bibles and Babylon Bee subscriptions instead of drugs?
Wait, do they actually have subscriptions?
Babylon Bee? Oh, yeah. Dude, there's content behind the paywall, man.
All right.
You don't know? Dude, there's a subscription for everything now.
Including Theology on Air, and you too can... Okay, let me stop.
Well, it's free. Our subscription is free, right?
For now.
No, but it's annoying. It's like, man, talk about it's $5 here, $6 there. It's like everybody wants my money.
And that's why you have to short squeeze the big guy to get your money back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so what happened to GameStop's stock? This is Babylon Bee's answer, right? Redditors noticed that GameStop stock was heavily shorted and began buying it up in large quantities. This caused the stock price to go up until hedge fund managers started crying and flipped the Monopoly game board over. right? So basically, yeah, it's like people are realizing, wait a minute. There's enough people now buying this stock at low prices. And I think one of the major firms that did this lost like over $1.5 billion or something.
Whew.
I mean, it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money.
For us, yes.
Right. So who's involved? On one side are the hedge fund managers. These guys are good-hearted regular folks living out the American dream by manipulating markets so that companies will fail and they can buy another desperately needed yacht. On the other side are a bunch of Cheeto-stained Redditors who are dangerously manipulating markets to try to make money. These guys obviously weren't informed that the stock market was only for rich people to make money. So anyway, and I think that it cuts off. Anyway, so basically, yeah, the idea is that are the hedge fund folks manipulating the market? Well, in some way, because when you are shorting a stock, you know, you're sort of holding it for a time, waiting for it to go down, and then when it goes down, you're actually buying it, and then you're giving what you borrowed back to these people. But yeah, so. But
are you saying that that's immoral? It's certainly not illegal.
Well, it's not illegal, but you know the morality of it is. I don't know. It's complicated, I guess.
That's the whole thing about this. It makes it so fascinating because I've been thinking about like the everyday guy that went in on this Reddit thing, is some people are saying what they did was wrong. It's hilarious and also maybe a little bit immoral because it was for their own gain,
okay,
but somebody else had to pay the price. But then the person that paid the price was rich. Does that make it okay?
Yeah. So what is a hedge fund, by the way? A hedge fund is like a massive fund of funds. It's like a bunch of IRA funds, for example, all in one fund now. And the idea is always that the bigger the fund and the more funds you get, then the more likely are you to make money. You know, so like this stock loses, but that's okay because you have this stock making money, and you multiply that by like 1 million, right? I mean, it's the same way. That's why you don't have, your pension wrapped up in Enron anymore, right? You have a 401k, and they've diversified your portfolio so that on the whole, as the market goes up, your money goes up too. Now, that's for you personally, but a hedge fund basically does that for corporations. So a hedge fund will actually manage like GE's money, right? Because GE also doesn't want to just make money selling light bulbs. They want to make money in the market too. So who can manage GE's billions of dollars? A hedge fund. Someone big enough to actually manage, things like that. So actually, I mean, there is something to be said for the fact that your pension, your IRA, is wrapped up to a degree in the success of hedge funds as well. So,
I hadn't really thought about that.
It does get a little bit tricky but I think that we are at a moment where people still wonder, like, how did Trump win? And I'm like, do you not understand that he might be a terrible person, he might be highly immoral and all this, but people feel very out of touch with the society in which they live. They feel like they're basically on an island, and very powerful people that don't listen to them control what they do. And that has only multiplied like significantly since people are being kicked off of social media, and the media is so one-sided. Anyway,
well, that idea you're talking about, this elitism, is actually being then shown in this story because you had the little guy that had a temporary win.
Right.
I mean, obviously, not all those little guys are going to win. Someone of the little guys section is going to be left holding the bag. But they had a win until Robinhood came in and said, oh, now we're going to regulate, which is they've never done before. It's unheard of. You can no longer trade, or now I guess they've opened up that you can do limited. They were like selling their stocks for them. Mm-hmm. That's crazy sauce. Like E-Trade or Schwab would never do that, but then they're like all linked in with the banks that are linked in with the hedge funds. So then it's like, well, now elitism is winning. Yeah. So it's exactly the point they were making from the beginning.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I think that the morality sort of comes in when it's like, well, how do I ensure that I'm not going to lose money? And we've just lost a basic understanding of the stock market. We don't have pensions anymore tied into one company. Nobody sort of has a say on their stock market anymore. You know what I mean? Like on their IRA or whatever. We hand that over to somebody else, and they're the experts who do it. And I don't know. So let me just read a couple more things, then we'll move on to other things. But they say, can you explain this using lemonade stand analogies? Okay, yeah. So it's like if you have a bunch of lemons and I borrow them from you and sell them, then the lemon market tanks, so I buy lemons at a much lower price and then hand them back to you. So I'm rooting for both you and the lemon industry to fail. I feel bad for all the lemonade stands, of course, but I'm able to wipe my tears away with my new piles of cash. Anyway, it's a fun way to and they say, so who's rooting for the Redditors? They say the left, the right, the center, the middle class, the upper class, the lower class, AOC, Ted Cruz, your mom, basically everybody.
Your mom.
Except for the richest 0.001% of the nation. So,
well, the last thing I want to say about that is the only way I think that you could kind of find a morality issue with all of this is that the hedge funds are going to maybe be bailed out by government. And if that's the case, then they do have a leg up. It's not just this fair market that everyone can play in, because no one's going to bail out the Redditor crowd if this goes south for them. And so in that way, I just think the whole thing is really shady. If everyone were playing fairly from the beginning, like you put your money in, it's a gamble, and you pull your money out, and that's up to you, then fine. Like, be stupid, be smart, do whatever you want. We're a free nation. But if someone's going to bail out the rich people and then stymie the not rich people from doing what they want to do, that's problematic.
Yeah.
Really problematic.
Well, and, whenever we have these conversations like, should Christians be a socialist and that sort of thing, one of the difficulties of that is like, well, on the one hand, I sort of, generally speaking, sort of defend corporatism or corporate America or the idea of a corporation or something to that effect. But that's a defense in principle. What I really defend, are voluntary transactions. People are free to buy what they want. People are free to sell what they want. But something when you start getting into the system that we have with stock markets and all of that, a company that has public shareholders has very different obligations than the local butcher. They now have Wall Street looking at them saying, make me money, make me money, make me money. And they're then tempted to go like, well, I need to make money however I can. Mm-hmm. So if I cheat a little bit here, if I do a little bit there, lay people off, all that matters is that this quarter, this is my projection and I have to meet it or my stock is going to go down. And if my stock goes down, then I'm not worth anything because that's, it doesn't matter how much money I make. It's like Apple can make $600 billion in a year. And their stock goes down. You're like, what? How could you make that much money in a year and your stock goes down? Well, they were projected to make $650 billion. And so it's just it's kind of a false world. FaceTime, go away. I don't want you anymore. How did you get into my life? Okay, so it's kind of a false world where we are very detached from our money. I think the other issue is that
detached from our money.
Detached, yeah. I mean, our money. We all know our money isn't real. Our nation has so much debt. Inflation is inevitable. We're going to be like buying bread with like milk wheelbarrows worth of dollars. So like I think
Evan's our optimist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have records of these sorts of things. Yeah. It's kind of inevitable at some point. Like you can't just keep printing money and it still be worth the same. Like
this is why I live in sheer poverty all the time, so that nothing will change.
You're just ready for it. Yeah. Anyway,
I'm joking. I don't live in sheer poverty.
Let's talk about QAnon.
Okay.
Something less controversial, kind of, now that we've wet the palate,
If we didn't lose everybody talking about stocks. So I don't know if you guys know anything about QAnon. I heard about QAnon a few months ago, but I've realized in just chatting with friends, most people still don't really know. Do you guys know anything about QAnon, the whole Q thing?
Very little.
Just on the surface.
Okay, because when the Capitol was stormed, a lot of people started investigating more about it because some of those people were holding signs that said Q, or they were dressed up and they were like part of the whole QAnon thing. So it's basically a conspiracy. Well, some people believe and some people think it's a conspiracy theory. Q we don't know who Q is. Q is this anonymous, hence the anon, person or group of people. Some people think it's someone high up in military or former military that on platforms like 4chan and other messaging boards and things like that will drop these little breadcrumbs or little pieces of like clues of information that gets at this bigger idea that there is a large group of heads of state, politicians, businessmen, all of these important people around the globe, it's not just in America, that are part of a really bad, like a cabal of important people that want to make just money for themselves and influence for themselves at the cost of everyone else. And in the course of doing that, it means they're going to affect elections. And there's also this seedy, weird kind of satanic piece of the story where they're involved in sex trafficking, and particularly sex trafficking with children, and even weird, crazy stuff like drinking children's blood and crazy stuff like that. So all of this sounds pretty bizarre, which is why I love it, because I don't love obviously sex trafficking
You're
or
into
drinking
blood.
anyone's blood.
Okay.
But I love a good story, and this is a great story. And y'all know I love cults. I love studying cults. I think they're so fascinating, and there's something about all of this that just rings of that. I mean, if you listen to someone that's a real believer, which I have, tell you about it, it's like watching a train wreck. Like, you can't stop. It's just so fascinating. I am not a believer in like 99% of this kind of thing, but I do find it interesting. But so anyway, the article that we pulled was from, I think, the Gospel Coalition, but it was this idea about what Christians should know about QAnon, because a large majority of Christians think that there's something really damaging about believing in QAnon. Oh, here's the other piece about the whole QAnon conspiracy or belief system, is that Trump and others following Trump are basically going to rescue us from this. And the way they're going to do that is they're going to have a bunch of world leaders arrested, and they're going to bring charges up against them for all these crazy, crazy things they're doing. And now I'm going to butcher this. So if we have any conspiracy theorists out there that want to correct me, feel free to go in our comments and do so. But basically, there's something that happened in 1871, post-Civil War, where America was essentially bankrupt, and so they sort of reincorporated. Do you know what I'm talking about? In 1871, basically, I'm butchering this. I know this, but
The
kind of
Illuminati owned America
rebranded.
is what you're saying.
Kind of rebranded America as like United States of America, but there were like little differences. Like, instead of using proper caps, they put it in all caps, and various other things that the QAnon people will say. So this hasn't been America since then. And see what Trump is going to do. Isn't this great storytelling? I feel like we need like a campfire, and everyone needs like s'mores.
I need a drink.
I have a guitar
A
downstairs.
drink. Yeah, we all need a drink. Anyway, Trump is going to come in, arrest a bunch of important people, and basically take us back to the America of 1871 and be inaugurated as like the 17th president or something like that. On March 4th. So y'all stay tuned. March 4th, it's all going to happen.
This is starting to sound like end of the world stuff, right? Like, oops,
it has the same
we were
ring.
wrong about January the 14th when Jesus is going to come again, but definitely on like April 25th. He's
Yeah.
coming.
Well,
okay.
Jehovah's Witnesses will do that kind of thing. They'll re-up every time.
Isn't that how the Seventh-day Adventists began?
I don't know.
The story I remember is they were waiting for the world to end, and they were staying at the field, and the day came and the world didn't end, so then they just started another branch of Christianity.
Well,
I could be making this up.
Jehovah's Witness did that, of course.
Yeah.
Eventually, Jehovah's Witness said that Jesus did come in, I think, 1925 or something, or 1914. Anyway. And
During the World War?
They had several like wrong, like he never came, but then they said, no, he spiritually came.
He's spiritual.
So that's how
That's convenient.
Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah.
he spiritually here all the time? Wait.
Yeah. But that also reminds me of like the SXPX guys in the Roman Catholic Church who think that the Pope now is all the popes since like Vatican II have been illegitimate. Y'all ever remember that?
It's similar.
Yeah.
In fact, part of the QAnon thing was that the Pope had been arrested recently. But we don't need to get into that because turns out he didn't. So a lot of this stuff is proven wrong. But a few things have been proven right, like the Jeffrey Epstein thing. And we don't need to get into that. But that gave some credibility. I think that really gave a boost to this theory. I shouldn't keep calling it a conspiracy theory, even though I think it is. But so anyway, the article that we have, I found interesting because I think the QAnon theory is probably wrong. I think it's a stretch, an overreach, a great story. But the article called it satanic. It called it a satanic movement infiltrating our churches. It's fringe, it's strange, but here's what I find interesting about that, and I want to hear y'all's opinions, is the idea of the QAnon theory is that the good guys are going to win. And there is a bunch of Christian nationalism bound up in this, which we can talk about in a minute, but this idea that the good, true Americans are going to weed out the bad guys that are hurting children and trafficking people, and they're going to come to power, and they're going to make America, well, great again. I mean, sorry, not sorry. And they're going to sort of restore us to be like God's nation or something, which, again, I don't think it's going to go down like that. And also this gets into what you believe about how the end of the world is going to look. Is the world getting better? Is the world getting worse? But I don't know that I'd call it satanic, because the idea is that the good sort of godly people are going to win. They might be wrong, misguided. Mm-hmm. The article basically called them satanic because they're saying lies. And I thought that was an interesting, if anyone that lie, but if anybody that lies is satanic, then we're all satanic.
Well, my thing was the Satanists probably don't want to be involved with the QAnon anyhow. So
like, hey,
they're like, do not involve us.
But isn't that the Christian thing? Like, if we don't agree with it, we just call it satanic.
Yes.
Isn't that the go-to card for us? That's weird. That's satanic. Don't do it. Harry Potter's satanic because whatever. Everything's satanic to us. So anyway.
I mean, we as Christians, we believe Satan is real and is doing things and is very involved in things like sex trafficking and all of the evils of the world. But to call a conspiracy theory satanic, I don't know. I'm just not there yet.
What
also,
about
maybe
flat earthers? Are they satanic? Because,
Yes. Yes, they're stupid. I'm sorry.
Well, they might be wrong. That's the distinction I'm trying to make. Is I think they're wrong. I think
but
science
at the same
has proven
time,
that.
like I don't mind. I've seen so much. There's ordained clergy that are buying into this conspiracy theory. So I don't mind people trying to differentiate us from like this weird sect of Christians saying this is not us.
Oh, that's
so
true.
If they want to call us satanic to get people off this train, then I'm all for it. But at the same time, I think it's an offense to Satanists too.
Well, and also, why get people off the train? This is a rhetorical because I think I'm with you, but
I think the people. So this is a generalization. The people I've seen that have bought all in to QAnon are more toxic than helpful.
Okay, toxic in what way?
They're
like they're not being gracious on social media, that kind of thing.
Well, no one's gracious on social media, so
what?
But
what are you
I think they bring
about?
more harm than unity that they think they are, and I don't know how much of Christian values we share with people who are full in on this this conspiracy. I just I don't know. It's just mind-boggling. These people are fascinating and crazy all rolled into. You're right. It's a train wreck that I can't stop watching.
Well, and here's the thing: the people that I've learned the most about QAnon from, that I will not name here, but they are believers, strong believers that love the Lord and do good and give to their churches and are involved in their church community. Loving, wonderful people. I disagree with them. This is maybe why I'm defensive and I don't want them called Satanists. But I do wonder, are they causing more harm, or is it a fantasy that you could just let people be part of? And like, if you believe in flat Earth, do I need to talk you out of that? I don't know.
I think so, but but here's the thing. So here's
I do think the Earth is a sphere.
So imagine, I think maybe for a lot of people they don't understand this because it's not going on in their churches, right? So like I don't have any of my members that are talking to me about QAnon, and probably none in your circle.
I don't have a church to have church members.
Okay.
So.
Aww.
So you're welcome.
Yes.
You're welcome
Yes.
here every Sunday. But imagine a church of like, say, 100 people on a Sunday. Your average evangelical conservative church, like half the people homeschool, whatever, and like maybe half that church is going to be into QAnon, and they're actually going to think something like, look, QAnon is actually real, and if you're not admitting that, then you're in denial of it, and you're actually allowing children to be hurt. Like the stakes are very high. You need to get on the QAnon train. So I can see how that would like foster church division.
Sure.
And I can see why the Gospel Coalition would like want to like tamp that down and say, look, you need to not buy into this because it's not true.
Yeah.
There's no good evidence for it, and it's going to take you down a rabbit hole that is mission creep to the nth degree. You know, you're not doing the gospel work anymore. You've made this kind of a gospel. I understand that. But again, I think and I'm not defending it, I'm just saying I believe that there is an extremely significant, that it is poo-pooed by everyone, say to my left that I talk to. There is a huge disconnect among millions and millions and millions of people in America who feel like they have no say in their country, that elites run it. There's no one holding them in check. And this is something that they grab onto.
Yeah, it's a lifeline.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, someday this is all going to be made right. The people that don't ever listen to the average people anymore, that are manipulating markets, that are, rigging elections, et cetera, whatever the case may be, they're going to get theirs, Now, he compares it to the satanic panic.
Yeah.
Right?
Satanic
Which is interesting.
Do you know about that?
No,
you
I
might be
don't.
too young for that. How old are
He's
you?
definitely too young
I'm
for that.
40.
Oh,
He's not too young.
He's old like us.
Yeah.
Okay. The satanic panic in like the 1980s, when everyone thought that
I just moved to
Satanists were-
America, so I wouldn't know.
You think Satan doesn't live in other countries, Joseph?
No,
Wow,
of
that
course
is
not.
so.
We
Basically, Dungeons and Dragons, okay? I mean,
No, it was more than Dungeons
Oh,
and
it was
Dragons.
more
It
than
was
that?
like pentagrams and black cats going missing on Halloween and all kinds of Ouija boards. Come on now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and basically the idea was
Can I-
that Satanism was rising and we got to...
But the other thing that just struck me is when you talk about people who feel like their voices haven't been heard. It seems like this happened because a lot of white voices are feeling like they haven't been heard, because voices of color haven't been heard for ever and ever and ever. And then when we do get together to do things like Black Lives Matter and to say, hey, listen to our voices, then we're called Satanists, for a lack of a better word. So it's just, I just realized, I didn't think of that until now, but also I'm still part of, I used to be United Methodist Clergy, but I'm not anymore, but I'm still part of their Facebook group, whatever, although I don't think I'm supposed to be. But when this QAnon thing was happening and everyone's become aware that this pastor went on clergy and said, why isn't the United Methodist Church caring about sex slaves and child sex slaves? And we're like, we do.
Yeah, we have been fighting this.
Thank you for joining us now, because some crazy, but it's just so
interesting.
It was just so weird. Like, it took you this to realize the work that we've been doing, or I shouldn't say we, that they've been doing for the past, the United Methodist Church is very active in these things, and sex slaves and trafficking and whatnot. It's just, now you're carrying out because someone told you from 4chan, which is also a very trolling website. So I don't know if you can take anything from 4chan seriously. Although I think 4chan is credited with this becoming the symbol for white nationalism, right?
Oh boy, I'm gonna have to stop doing the okay sign.
Like,
how do you feel about that?
I think 2017 they flooded the social media saying this is associated with white nationalism.
If you're just listening on the podcast, he's doing the okay sign.
But aren't there conspiracy theories on the other side about Trump too? Like, Trump is the head of some white nationalist movement or something, even though he's repudiated it over and over and over again.
I don't think he's the head of the but I do think the fact that he is close to David Duke and all that stuff, just watch the company that you keep, because you just don't want to be associated with certain things. But
is he in company with David Duke? Or
No, they have some relations here and then. He received money from them. And
I knew
whatnot.
that David Duke gave money to
it's
the
like,
campaign.
well, don't take that money.
Really?
Clear this, cut it off. Just be like, I'm not associated with him. Don't take that money.
But how much money was it?
Well, that's how much is your soul worth, Sarah Stone?
Hey, look,
if I'm running for president.
I grew up in Louisiana, and I vividly remember the Edwin Edwards, David Duke governor's race. I think it was in '92.
Oh, did David Duke run for governor too?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, he was like the finalist in Louisiana.
Jeez.
Yeah. Edwin Edwards was a Democrat who was known by everyone to be crazy, dirty. I mean, just corrupt as could be. Talk about good old boy network and blah, 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 the whole thing. And so David Duke had this foothold, because there were people who were so sick of the Edwards, machine.
Yeah.
The governor in Louisiana now is named Bell Edwards, no relation to Edwin Edwards. And anyway, but they're so tired of this machine that David Duke, and he was promising common sense kind of conservative reforms of public schooling, and he was like, hey, I used to be the Grand Wizard of the KKK, but that was past. I'm a Christian now. And so, Christians were like, well, we do believe in forgiveness, so maybe that's
Isn't that kind of mirroring what happened in 2016
with Trump?
Yeah, with everyone just tired of the Clintons for sure.
Yeah.
And
part of the cabal, by the way.
Oh, well, of course. They're hey, isn't that Pizzagate? Is Pizzagate and QAnon related?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay. So, I think that, I think Christians definitely overlooked a lot about Trump.
My wife just texted me and said, get my elbows off the table.
Sorry.
She always texts you
amazing.
when we're, last time we did Theology on Tap, she texted you. Let me just say, though,
That's so cute.
I'm not a big fan of the Gospel Coalition, and this is why. I feel like they've used their energies to go after something like this, which is fair, but are they using the same amount of energy to go after other satanic influences, right? Which we'll get to here in a moment. But for example, they say the QAnon movement frequently engages in slander, which James calls demonic behavior. Traffics in lies, which is associated with Satan. And that's all fine. I mean, let's just say that QAnon is, but they're not peddling Satanism. They're not. They're being dishonest. Okay.
They're peddling crazy.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, it just came out that that one of the founders of the Lincoln Project, who's this Republican group, that was opposed Trump for his entire presidency, that he had been trafficking with grooming young men for sex for years, and there's 20 statements out against him now. So I don't know. Has the Gospel Coalition written a repudiation of the Lincoln Project?
Yeah.
But also it's self-surviving or self-serving too. If it's gonna affect them, they're gonna go after it. If it's not gonna bother any of the Gospel Coalition churches, I don't think they bother with it.
Interesting.
But I'm not a big fan of the Gospel Coalition either. So.
Yeah.
So we agree on that.
Yeah.
Gospel Coalition. you're going down around here.
But we're going to keep using your articles.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I think my brother and sister-in-law are part of the Gospel Coalition churches.
Huh.
But he's crazy too.
Well, I don't know if they have churches per se, but
And you just said he's crazy, which reminded me another piece of this, which I think gets back to what we were talking about earlier.
Daniel, you're not crazy. I'm just kidding.
With censorship and some of that kind of thing. So Lynn Wood, do you know that name?
yes.
So he was one of the attorneys. He and Sidney Powell were kind of involved in the Trump really won the election, all that jazz. Anyway, he's an attorney in Atlanta, Georgia, I think. And he is
ATL.
linked with the QAnon thing. I don't know how much he would say he is, but he definitely will put out these posts all the time saying stuff that sound very QAnon-ish. They have sort of a mix of religious undertones. Well, it's not just undertones. It's like, God is going to do this. Keep praying. God is going to be faithful, and he's going to save our country from all these terrible things. Anyway, so apparently the Georgia Bar Association is demanding that he have a mental health evaluation. I'm serious. I'm so serious. And that was done, confidentially, but he outed it and said publicly, I'm not going to go through with this. And I thought it was fascinating because I thought, I can see both sides of this. I can see the side that's like, you're saying a lot of stuff that sounds kind of crazy. We want to make sure you're okay. But I can also see him being like, this is a witch trial. Like if I go in, they're going to find something. And the stuff I'm saying does sound crazy. And I was thinking about my own life. Like, I believe a guy rose from the dead. I believe there was like a talking snake in a garden somewhere. Like, that's kind of crazy. And depending on who evaluates me, I might not want that potentially ending my career. So that's just another facet of all this.
And I think, and just as an example, in Lynn Wood's case, Nicholas Sandmann fired him. Nicholas Sandmann was the young guy that confronted the Indian at the Lincoln Memorial or whatever.
Yeah.
Back in the day, he had his MAGA hat on, and the Washington Post went after him. And Lynn Wood was the lawyer who sued, I think, CNN and maybe Washington Post or whatever, and won huge amounts of money. It's undisclosed, but millions and millions of dollars for libel against Nicholas Sandmann, who spoke at Trump's convention.
Right.
So, all of that said, Nicholas Sandmann, he's a young guy, but he fired Lynn Wood recently. So, I that's one of those situations where I'm going, okay, you got to take a step back, and it's like, I might want to believe what he has to say, but, you have to consider the source.
What's that representative lady's name? The crazy one? I shouldn't say crazy, but the one that's...
Everybody's crazy.
You'll have to narrow that down.
Oh, my God, I can't remember her name, but, she's...
Sidney Powell. People think she's crazy.
Who?
No, she's not a representative.
No, it's like Lauren. Oh. Anyway, she's a representative. I don't know exactly where, but she's also like a school shooter denier that's saying that Parkland didn't happen. There were actors and all that stuff, and that kind of person is in charge of passing laws. And so therefore, I would say persons like her with that kind of influence should be subjected to some kind of standards and whatnot. Like a lawyer, a personal, private, or whatever lawyer. If the bar says they want to test it to make sure, because he's been out in the front, maybe, but as a private citizen, I don't know. But as a representative,
I agree with you.
If you're going to be out there, she's the one that was accused of giving tours of the Capitol before the storming. I can't remember her name. I willfully blocked it out of my mind.
Well, someone in Florida just won, and maybe in the Parkland area.
So but no, she's known to have peddled QAnon.
Interesting.
And then she wore a face mask that says Trump won or something like that.
Oh gosh.
But people like that who is in charge of passing and making and creating laws, I feel like it would be fair to have them go through some kind of assessment to make sure that they're mentally able to look out for most of the people.
Example.
Yeah.
The who?
Like the president, for example.
Well, that was that whole 25th. Whatever Nancy Pelosi wanted to do to Trump.
25th Amendment.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, yeah.
Okay, we've gotten way off. And so maybe you want to bring us back on track with something else, or maybe we want to talk about Christian nationalism. I don't know.
Let's save that.
Save it.
Let's save it. I wouldn't mind coming back to that because actually the bishop of my former denomination is keyed in on that. But I want to talk about there's an article in the Associated Press from January 25th. Group of U.S. Catholic bishops urge support for LGBT youth. Now, first of all, I think that language is important, and I think it's interesting what kind of words people use. I think that in media generally, there's this kind of it's very hard for me to read a lot of news articles because the language is so weak and so often, and statements from church leaders is so weak. It doesn't speak with clarity, and I find that exceptionally annoying. But I wanted to talk about this because I think that it gets at major points of division in society and in the church. And generally speaking, the Roman Catholic Church doctrinally, I mean, in the Constitution or in their book of laws, whatever, canon law or whatever, they talk about LGBT issues or gay and lesbian issues, et cetera, as being intrinsically disordered, right? So so now there's something that comes out and it says God is on your side. So I think this language is very interesting, and I want to try to figure it out. So this is, again, an AP article, Group of U.S. Catholic Bishops Urges Support for LGBT Youth, written by David Crary. And it reads thus: declaring, quote, God is on your side, end quote, a Roman Catholic cardinal, an archbishop, and 6 other U.S. bishops issued a statement Monday expressing support for LGBT youth and denouncing the bullying often directed at them. Quote, all people of goodwill should help, support, and defend LGBT youth, end quote, said the statement released by the Tyler Clementi Foundation, named for... My printer, I think, cut something off. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're back and forth. Or you're on the... It's two-sided. So it doesn't pick up from where you left off?
I don't know.
Oh, you're right. It doesn't.
I'm guessing it's named after that guy.
Okay.
Tyler Clementi. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah.
It's a possibility.
Anyway, it was signed by, say, Cardinal Joseph Tobin, Archbishop of New York, New Jersey, and Archbishop John Wester of Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so let me just read a little more for some more context. According to Catholic teaching, gays and lesbians should be respected, loved, and not discriminated against, but homosexual activity is considered intrinsically disordered, quote unquote. The church leadership in the U.S. vigorously opposes same-sex marriage and has not supported efforts to boost acceptance of transgender people. The bishop's statement said LGBT youth attempt suicide at much higher rates, often are homeless because of families who reject them and are the target of violent acts at alarming rates. Right. So we take this opportunity to say to our LGBT friends, the document says, especially young people, that we stand with you and oppose any form of violence, bullying, or harassment directed at you. Most of all, know that God created you, God loves you, and God is on your side. That's what I want to kind of focus on.
Yeah, that's the part I sort of circled when I was looking at this.
Okay, so let me just say, first of all, that we don't support bullying of any kind. Or violence of any kind towards anybody. There's no need for it. It's unchristian, and it should be wholesale. We completely agree. We all agree on this, yes? Okay, this is the official statement.
Well, it depends on who... I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
What if you're bullying a bully?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but so,
like the hedge funders.
Yeah. Through an app or something, right? Yeah, but what does it mean when the church says something like, most of all, know that God created you? That strikes me as really stupid language for bishops to write or a cardinal to use, right? Because of course God created them. God created everything. God created that's not the point. What do they say?
On that topic, it's because they've been told that they're an abomination. The United Methodist Church use the language they are incompatible with the Bible. So all throughout their lives, they're told that there's something wrong with them, that they're an abomination.
Well, hang on. I have to say, you say them. Do you mean transgender or do you mean gay and lesbian?
All the LGBT people.
Okay. Because here's a question that I have, and I've been thinking about this recently. For example, one of the things when my prior denomination was looking at the gay and lesbian issue.
What's your prior denomination?
ELCA.
ELCA.
The Evangelical Lutheran Church.
Okay, got it.
So basically the Episcopal Church, but Lutherans, or PCOSA. We're all in the Methodist Church.
Mainline denomination of Lutherans, yeah.
The liberal Lutherans. So one of the things that I would hear gay people often say is something like, well, God didn't make junk.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like Genesis 1, God created it, saw that it was good, and this is how I'm made. And so that's why this kind of jumps out at me, is because one of the things I'll hear gay and lesbian people say is, this is how I'm made, this is who I am.
Right.
But that's the exact opposite of what transgender people say, right? They say...
Oh, yeah, interesting.
Oh, God did make junk. They don't say that. But the point is that, oh, well, wait a minute.
I'm in the wrong body.
I'm the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I'm broken. I have to do this to my body, not anything to my mind, but I have to do this to my body so that now my mind and soul line up. You know what I mean? That's why I interrupted, because when we say they and them, I'm like, I don't think they see the world in the same way. Because I think that gay and lesbian assumes gender.
Yes.
That's what same-sex attraction, it demands gender, in fact. But transgenderism says that gender is fluid. And
no. Transgenderism doesn't say it's fluid because they want to go from one to another.
Oh.
It needs to be bipolar.
So
there is a whole other movement that wants to make things fluid.
Oh, okay.
The
what
gender
is that?
non-essentialist kind of thing, which is what we were talking about before we started.
Oh.
So, yeah, I mean, when a lot of the talk came out about gender fluidity, not that it's all recent, but in some of the recent conversations, some of the like YouTube stars, like Blair White, I think is she's a transgender woman. She's like, I paid a lot of money to go from looking like a man to looking like a woman. And she looks like a very beautiful woman. And so I definitely believe in the binary. But that's tertiary to your point.
Well, so to me, when the church speaks, it should speak with absolute clarity in terms, if you're representing God, you should be very clear. And so when it says something like, know that God created you. So what you're saying, Joseph, you're saying that the church feels they need to say that because transgendered people...
Or all of them.
All of LGBT people?
Yeah,
okay.
The church has done so much harm to the LGBT, not just transgender, but like all the that I think it's important to be reminded that, hey, sorry, but for all the harm that we've done, but you are a child of God, and you are loved, and even though and we were talking about before we went on air, I forgot what you said, but the reason why so many LGBT folks have a axe to grind against the church is because they've done so much, they've received so much harm from them. Yeah. So it's like, I wouldn't like if you grew up with a very toxic parent, and when anything that happens to trigger you about that toxic parent, you're gonna react in a defensive.
And it'll mean a lot if somebody comes along and says you matter.
Exactly. So I think that's what the church is saying. Yeah. I don't think it was just limited to one of the designated groups. I think it was expressed to all the people who are of all sexuality.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, and that's true because it does say LGBT. So yeah. Well, it goes on to say God loves you. Now, I think actually that needs to be nuanced too, and people might be like, how could you? Who doesn't agree with that? Well, and then you would get into, well, are there particular ways that God loves people, and you might get into questions of election and things like that. But let's just say we
haven't gone that far where we went.
Let's just say, okay, God loves all people. We could get into biblical arguments about whether God loves all people in the same way.
We can all agree that God created everything born out of love.
And I believe all people are creating God's image. That's actually what I think, if I'm allowed to say this, would make something like transgenderism wrong. Is that they are made in God's image, and they were made in the way that God intended them to be made, and they're saying that the way that God made them is wrong, and so they have to change that. Now that might be a superficial way of saying it, but then they say this: God is on your side. I mean, that's the money quote. So how do you reconcile saying that the way that you are living and understand yourself is intrinsically disordered? I mean, that's language that the Catholic Church uses.
And that's Augustine, right? That said the whole thing about disordered desires. That's an Augustinian concept.
I don't know.
I think I've always really liked that idea of disordered desires. We all have them.
Yeah, sure.
We've put God sort of number 4 or whatever, but continue.
Yeah, but I think intrinsically disordered, it in other words, like at the very heart of it, like the desire itself is wrong. Like it's your lust for this person is disordered. It's against the orders of nature. It's against the way that God made nature. God made them male and female, and for purposes of procreation, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, maybe they're trying to use that language to work on changing I'll only say this. So I've been United Methodist a lot longer than I've been Episcopal. And again, in the book of discipline of the United Methodist Church regarding human sexuality, it does say that homosexuality is incompatible with the biblical teaching. And what the people have been fighting for is to take that part out.
Yeah.
Right.
So we will tell them that God is on your side and you're not incompatible. We're trying to work to remove that from our church's language. So I wonder if it's a way to kind of,
the first step
it's there. They can't ignore the fact that that's in their canon or whatever the Catholics call whatever.
None of us know.
Yeah.
But this is a way to say, okay, we know that's there, and we're working on fighting to change it because we want you to know that God is on your side and you're not
intrinsically disordered.
What a weird phrase.
I really do think it goes back to the disordered desires thing. But what's interesting about all of this is that there are so many camps. Let's just take gay and lesbian for now. And by the way, we're going to have a podcast very soon with David Bennett, who is a gay Christian in the UK that's going to talk about all of this kind of stuff. So if you find this interesting, subscribe, and you can hear that coming up. But
with an accent.
What? Yeah, he has a mixed accent because he grew up in Australia, then he went to Oxford. So anyway, it'll be fun. He's great. But I think there's the message that we want to send every single person, which is that you were created in God's image. God is a loving God. He doesn't make junk. He cares about you. God cares about the human race so much that he put a rescue mission in place, knowing that we were just going to give him the full middle finger of rebellion, right? I mean, that is a lot of love. And that is for all kinds of people, right? All kinds of sinners. So that can all be true, even if you take a traditional stance that homosexuality is sinful, or homosexual activity, or same-sex attraction, or whatever you want to say. But the God is on your side thing could go either way. Because I could say to my kids that I think they're doing something wrong, like, I'm for you, I'm on your side, I love you. That's still true, even if they're going to do something I think is wrong. Is it saying that? If so, great. Is it saying God is on the side of, activism and he's pro-LGBT? Then that's a separate thing.
Well, isn't that the problem then? If a statement could go either way,
I think it's done that way on purpose.
If an LGBT person could hear that God is on your side, there's no doubt that many are hearing that going, oh, the church accepts me for how I am now. So it's no longer a sin to be gay. It's no longer transgenderism acceptance. Okay, great. God is on my side. But what the church could be saying is, God wants what is best for you. God is on your side.
Yeah.
And now you need to repent of whatever. So, I mean, again, I actually think Christianity is very simple to understand. And I find a lot of what comes out of institutional settings, and the bigger they are, it seems like the more nebulous what they say is. But the bottom line is, is it right or wrong? And if it's wrong, then just say that we are called to repent of that which is wrong, that which is not God-honoring, that which is, But if it is right, then just say it. Say, we don't think that it's intrinsically disordered anymore. We think that homosexual desires are just as biblically acceptable as heterosexual desires. By the way, homosexual and heterosexual are not biblical words or categories. Yeah. I don't like them at all. Neither should be used.
I want to say one more thing, though, about the bullying. So I have several friends who are LGBT, and they use this phrase a lot, and I thought it was just colloquial. They'll say, well, when I was growing up, I was told I was going to hell. And I'd say, but were you really told you were going to hell? Or is that sort of a caricature of the church?
No, I was told I was going to hell too.
Yeah. But that's what they'll say is, no, I was told those words. In fact, I just had a conversation with somebody like in the last 24 hours who said, my parents told me and still believe I'm going to hell. This wasn't a gay person, but just someone that their sin du jour is going to send them to hell. And I think I was so protected from that kind of language. Like, my parents never would have said that to me. My church never would have said that. But that there are people that hear that, regardless of what the sort of sin, whether you think it's a sin or not, if someone thinks you're sinning, who tells people that? And so in that way, I love that the church is coming out and saying, just for now, hear that God loves you. My goodness, he loves you. He loves you so much, he died. That's heartwarming. If it's a slow step, if it's a purposely ambiguous statement to then move forward to changing their tune on something, then maybe it's a little bit shady. But I'm not mad about saying, we don't want you to be bullied. We don't want the suicide rate to be higher. I think there's something very lovely about that. You were going to jump in.
Oh, no, I was just saying.
You were told you were going to hell?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for what? Tell us all the juicy details.
It was in college. I showed up to the wrong meeting. I thought I was showing up to a Korean Student Association meeting, but I ended up going to a campus, crusade campus, whatever that crew now.
Yeah.
I should not name them. Sorry, because I have nothing nice to say about them. Anyway.
Well, the rest of us do, so we'll even out. Go ahead.
So I sat in the middle, so I was stuck. I knew I was in the wrong place when the guy stood up and said, let's pray. I'm like, oh no. So my dad's a pastor, by the way, as he's a retired United Methodist pastor. So I was already going to church. So anyway, I was like, let's give it a try as college people. I get to hang out with college kids. And then I realized about 2-3 sessions in, nah, this ain't for me. Like they're really passionate, like really, really, really passionate. And they want me to be on the same level of passion. And I can't do that. So I stopped going. And, they started calling me, emailing me, texting me. And I'm like, I'm good. And then after about a month of ghosting them, I didn't ghost them because I told them I'm not going to go. And then
you were clear.
They started coming to my room, knocking on my dorm room, that's
the most.
And then finally, these two guys showed up to my dorm, and I said, "Hey, okay, let's be real. My dad's a pastor. I work at my dad's church. I do the youth ministry at church. I go to church every Wednesday and every Sunday. I don't need another church. I'm good." And they said to me, "It's the wrong kind of church.
Wait, what was the kind of church you were going to? Was it a
United
satanic
Methodist? It might, according to those crew people, yeah, it must have been satanic. It's like, you need to go to our church.
There we go, Satanism again.
So I said, okay, so you're telling me that if I go to your church, I'll be going to heaven? And they're like, yes. And it's like, I think that would be hell for me, so I'm gonna take my chances.
Oh, that's funny.
And then they're like, well, will you be okay with being in hell? And I was like, if you guys aren't there, yes.
We call that a false dichotomy.
And so,
You said that to them?
yeah. And so
I didn't know crew was that intense. Maybe it was just this one chapter.
Let's
hope it was just this one stalkery.
The people of crew I've met since then, I realized that they were special. University of Hawaii. Anyway, I'm hoping they're not like that anymore either. But it's just like, why we're on the same boat, and you're telling me that I'm gonna be in hell if I don't.
That was during the Satanic Panic.
No, stop. But see,
So
people throw that around.
It's not the best feeling, even though it didn't mean anything to me. I was like, holy moly, they're gonna go that route to get me to their church, and I was like, yeah. So
Can I play Heaven's Advocate though?
Heaven's Advocate.
Oh my gosh, that's so cheesy.
Well, you said who tells people that? Well, Paul did say that all these people won't inherit the kingdom of God.
But because of actually something real, not your denomination is a little off from ours.
I mean, I would argue one of the things on the list was what the Catholic Church just
Oh,
said.
I was referring to his. Then.
Oh, no, for sure. Yeah. But Joseph's story is, we're with you there.
Also, I'm sorry, but you thought you were going to a Korean something or other?
Yeah.
And it took you like 3 meetings.
Hold on. Hawaii is very diverse, and I figured they just wanted to meet Korean girls. Like they were. Well, that's what we all were there for. But
I went to the Korean group for that.
There are lots of mixed pleas. I mean, it's Hawaii, so I figured this is how the KSA and the University of Hawaii rolls. And then the guy got up and said, "Let us pray." And by then, I had written my email name.
Oh, so it wasn't a Korean Christian group. It was just a
no.
group.
I thought I was showing up to a Korean group. And turned out it was Campus Crusade, whatever they're called.
Sorry, I forgot the Hawaii piece. So I just thought you're among all these white people.
No.
Okay.
Gotcha. That's funny. All right. Oh goodness, we're having fun. This is great.
Well, anyway, yeah. So, how much time do we have?
4 minutes.
Well, should we cover something else?
Yeah, let's do it. You want to talk about Nazis or gender-neutral pronouns or what?
The Nazi one's a really long article, but it was pointed out to me. It's basically the Nazification of the Republican Party. I don't even know if it's worth reading. It's from Counterpunch. But basically the argument is that, the Republican Party are Nazis. And I guess I'd like to be someone who says, well, is that really the case? Doesn't that violate whatever law it is that whoever brings up the Nazis first loses the argument?
Yes.
I never heard that before.
Like ad Hitlerium or something like that.
Anyway. Yeah, it's like a law of conversation or something. But, I one of the things that I guess troubles me is, it's getting hard to talk to people anymore, and the events on January 6th have basically, of course, I don't. Okay, let me just lay my cards on the table. I don't think those were all Trump supporters. I think there is evidence of agitation of professional folks there, but. Anyway, even if it was all Trump supporters, even if the guy with the tattoos that link him to whatever, Antifa or something, let's just say he was Mr. MAGA. So what? No, maybe that's controversial to say, but there are something like 75 million people who voted for Trump. Were they all there storming the Capitol? Would they all have stormed the Capitol?
Yes. No, I'm actually, obviously they weren't all there storming the Capitol, but there were some conservative pundits that were saying on that day, one of the worst parts about this is that now anyone that is even conservative, didn't vote for Trump or held their nose and voted for Trump, is going to be lumped in, that is, with the people that stormed the Capitol. And I personally got texts that next day saying how can you believe that? I was like, I would like to remind you that I was in Houston, Texas.
Yeah, I wasn't
what?
There. We were caught off guard by it. We didn't know it was going to happen.
And we think it's very wrong. It was awful what happened.
Yeah. And so anyway, But because of that, it's like the barn door is open, and anyone who has any conservative leanings at all is just as guilty as they were, and they would have stormed the Capitol too, and so they're basically Nazis, because that's what the Nazis did. They burned down the Reichstag and took over the government and et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
anyway,
it's about groupthink, I think, is the idea that so many people got pulled into the Nazi ideal who you never would have guessed because they signed on to this groupthink, and that Republicans are the same way. But I think you could just say humans are that way.
Yeah. I'm always against, it's easy to brush everyone with a big, broad paint stroke, whatever. But I have really close people who I respect that voted for Trump, and it took me a second to realize why they would do it. And do I think they're racist? Absolutely not. But I do think that they voted for it with their wallet more than anything else. And like, you know, as a clergy person, it's important to find ways to connect with both sides, if you will. Not calling that there were good people on both sides, not that, but like John Wesley and the Anglicans believed in via media, like find the middle way. But at the same time, you know, how I balance that is you always, I think I might have gone into discussion with you on the last video, the
Theology Untitled.
Yeah, but you know, when in doubt, always side with the people who are oppressed rather than the people who are in power. And the people who are hurting. So I don't think the Republican Party they're all Nazis. I don't think it's fair to say that people who stormed the Capitol represent the entire Republican Party. But at the same time, I do feel that the people who pushed it, from like the Cruzes and that representative that I can't think of, they need to be held accountable for. Like, we can't just overlook it and be like, oh yeah, that happened January 6th. Now that we have a new president, next story. And it's like, we gotta make sure that this doesn't happen again. And the only way we do
in theory, that's what the impeachment trial is. You know,
well, not just for him, but like our senator, for example, was clearly egging people on too. I feel.
I haven't seen that, but
so like
he actually lost his ability. He lost his opportunity to speak, I think, because he was trying to get. You know, he wanted like this 10-day moratorium or something on the recount. And
by the way, we're talking about Ted Cruz.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Because not everybody that listens. I like to think we have a worldwide reach. See?
But Texas is the world. It's what I've learned when I moved here.
And
nothing else matters besides Texas.
That's right. Sorry. Continue. I just
sorry.
No. I just haven't seen that. You know, where there was. I don't know. I haven't seen where Cruz instigated this, or Trump did, for that matter. I think that the case against him is pretty weak. But I guess that's the purpose of a trial. And
just to take Ted Cruz and loop it back in with what you were talking about. So I don't know how it started, but there became this sort of like Twitter back and forth between AOC, the Honorable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Ted Cruz, and I guess they were agreeing
on the GameStop.
The GameStop thing, yeah. So they agreed that Robinhood should not be limiting people's access to make these trades or whatever. And I guess Ted Cruz said something like, "Yeah, that's what I think." And she wrote back something like, "I don't want you coming to my defense.
Like, I will work with Republicans, but not the ones that try to get me killed."
She was like, "Y'all just a few days ago tried to get me killed, so I'll talk to another GOP, but like miss me with this, you know."
No.
And it gets back to that idea, right? Like, Ted Cruz did not try to kill you. That's just not a correct statement.
Yeah.
I don't know about, what he was. I know he definitely was at the forefront of the, make sure the votes were counted and all that stuff.
I just don't like him.
So Joseph does not like Ted Cruz.
I mean, how do you go robocalling or cold calling people after the guy that you ran against called your wife ugly, your dad a possible serial murderer, and all that stuff, and be like the next day, hey, want to vote for him? Anyway, sorry.
Well, he actually one of the things I hated about Trump was in 2016 when he called Ted Cruz Lying Ted, because I actually really liked Ted Cruz. So I was really bothered by that, because to me, to call someone a liar, as we just heard from the Gospel Coalition, is satanic.
But then to go and vouch for that guy is it's just like, I don't know.
I hear you. I mean, politics is a really dirty business.
It is.
There's basically no justification.
Can't trust any politician.
Yeah.
And
by the
pastors.
way, let me just say
just kidding
that,
about the pastors.
Can we just say that, if Nazism wrong, Marxism also a terribly wrong ideology that was responsible for the death of millions of people. But I don't know, somehow Marxism is okay.
I like how you're going to drop that in like doorknob therapy time. Like, we're almost done. You're like, and also Marxism is terrible. Bye. Thank you for coming.
Doorknob therapy. I don't know.
Doorknob therapy.
It's a counselor. I used to be a counselor, and doorknob therapy.
It's like when people are
leaving
on their way out.
By the way, I had an affair. We'll talk about that next week. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, well, we do have to go, and you have to go too. So, thanks for listening via the podcast. This is the Theology on Air podcast, by the way. Again, I'm Evan McClanahan, pastor at First Lutheran. They're embarrassed every time I say that. And Sarah Stone, Director of Outreach for Young Adults at Memorial Drive Presbyterian Church, mdpc.org, flhouston.org for me. And Joseph Yu, he'll be planning a church. Is it Pearland?
Pearland. mosaicpearland.org.
All right.
And as the kids say, please smash the like button.
Smash the like button.
Smash all the like buttons. Yeah. Ours, his, the subscribe button.
We definitely need some more YouTube viewers.
Smash away.
We're going to give this YouTube thing a try.
I feel old.
Until they tell. Anyway, by the way, does everyone like our new on-air sign? We might be getting different colors soon, but we made it just for you. the watcher, the viewer.
I was going to say the poor podcast listeners can't see.
I know they can't see our on-air sign. That's sad. Well,
just imagine something that says on air.
Just go to YouTube, check it out for 5 seconds, give us a view, and then subscribe while you're there. So again, HoustonTOT.com for everything you need to know, and we'll see you next time. And until then, we encourage you to think deeply.
Question freely.
Question freely.
Think deeply.
Think deeply and disagree.